It's very easy when you have to interview someone whom the audience is intimately familiar with, right? I mean, Reed, after all, is the man who knows what you do in your pajamas, or whatever it is you wear when you're watching TV, right? And one of the things that Netflix claims is that it has this algorithm that tells them all about you. So I was a little nervous, right? I mean, here I am interviewing a man who probably has looked it up and knows everything about me, my deep, dark secrets.
Sukumar, what are you watching that you're so worried about?
The last thing that I watched on Netflix, which you can probably say, is a repeat of The Other One, a documentary of Bob Weir.
Okay.
Entirely safe, right? Especially in a country where most people don't know who Bob Weir is, right? But how much TV do you watch?
I'm an hour-a-day person. I'm not at the heavy end.
An hour a day is, and how much do your typical viewers watch? How much do they watch?
It's incredibly wide variation. You know, if you have a job that you don't love, but you're working to support your family, then you come home and you just want to escape, and people will watch a lot. If you are working, 15 hours a day, like probably most people in this room, then you squeeze in a little bit of something that you've heard about. And we cater to all kinds of needs and taste. We've got, shows for babies, we've got shows for adults, we've got, just a huge variety.
Yeah, and you can pretty much watch it anywhere, right? I mean, I remember a few months ago, I was watching an episode of The Punisher at the gym in front of me, and the lady at the next treadmill almost fell off during one of the scenes because...
That's a tough one to watch in public. Yeah, that's one of the Marvel series.
I thought we'd start off by with a quiz for Reed. I want to know how well he knows his own shows. Right?
Let's go.
All right. This is about a show which I know is one of Reed's favorites. It's also one of mine. Who pops out of the cake at Diane Gwen's 35th surprise birthday party? Okay, this is from a show called
BoJack Horseman.
BoJack Horseman.
Her third, which season is that in? Her 35th birthday.
It's a surprise party. Who pops out of the cake?
I don't recall.
You don't know? Okay. Anyway, by then most of the guests have left. It's Paul McCartney playing himself. Okay.
Are these going to be all music themed? I got my hint now. Okay.
No, I don't know.
Let's hear.
Carlos Rafael Rivera, theme for which show?
Don't know.
Won an Emmy.
Which one?
Godless.
Godless.
Is there going to be a season 2?
Great. No, it's a mini series. That's a closed end.
It's over?
Series.
In which case you're getting a tough question next. Inspiration for Sandy Kaminski.
Well, you're going to hear from, you all have a treat with Michael Douglas tomorrow, I think, right? He's here. Which is, he stars as plays Sandy Kaminski. But what was his inspiration? I'm not sure.
What was he, which real life person was he modeled on?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Konstantin Stanislavski. I've never heard of him either. But I'm told he was this great method actor. Suhail might have heard of him.
This is getting very interesting for the audience.
Yes, I know. Okay. What is so significant about the Netflix movie, not the Netflix movie, about the movie Beasts of No Nation?
It's one of the early films we did. It's a very tough film, set in Africa. It's a child warrior, and ultimately his redemption as a human being, despite being this child warrior.
And I'm told the first film distributed by Netflix.
We've got a lot of films now, but someone I think has to be called the first.
All right.
So that's how
Last question is an easy one.
Okay.
The first 2 seasons of The Crown had only one American actor play a significant role. Which one and who?
Well, you are good at this. I don't know who.
John Lithgow, Winston Churchill.
John
All the other
Lithgow.
characters were British.
All right.
Okay. So I think he was actually telling us the truth about that 1 hour. And I'm not sure he watches any of the good shows. Okay. Tell us about your reading of India, because you've come to look at India and understand India from a very unique perspective.
Sure.
What people watch, right? So what does that tell you about the country, about its people?
Well, our audience, we launched in 2016. We've continued to invest. So we've got obviously a lot of content from the States and the UK and Spain. And then we're developing our Hindi and local content here. This year and next year, we'll spend about 3,000 crores developing content. So you'll start to see a lot of stuff hit the screen, big investment. We've got about 100 people, employees in Mumbai, and a couple thousand that are working on the different productions. So we're really, trying to invest in that, becoming, more Indian in the content offering. What have we learned? Little Things is one of our top series this week. A new season came out, season 3. So that's 2 young people living in an apartment first time, so very relatable for young people, kind of a honest life. Delhi Crime and Sacred Games have been 2 of our biggest successes here. So people love, big drama, those kind of shows.
When you look at your Indian audience, and I know you're not going to give us a number, you're not going to tell us how many people you have here, but my guess would be anything between
it's
1 million and 2 million.
It's 160 globally, so it's a big number, but like you said, we're just getting started here in India.
Yeah, sure. What do they watch more? Do they watch local content, or do they watch your international content more?
The great thing about on-demand service like Netflix, or Hotstar or Amazon is you get to choose what you want. So people watch a mix. It's all over the board. So some people watch Friends from 25 years ago, and others watch Beast of No Nation. So it's an incredible variety, and that's really what the internet's about. And frankly, it brings us back to the book. So people say, oh, Netflix invented binge viewing. But the truth is, the original binge view was the novel. And you got to stay up late at night and read it and take it on holiday, and it was personal, and you have great choice of thousands of great books. And then there was this temporary era of linear TV. And now with the internet, it's coming back to this more personal market, like books are.
Okay, I was going to bring this up later, but because you mentioned binge viewing, are you seeing a decline in binge viewing? Because of late, I've seen a trend across streaming services where they've stopped sort of dumping everything in one lot. They're sort of phasing it out. So is that changing?
It's a great innovation with the novel. The original serialized content used to be in the newspapers, and every Thursday there'd be a new chapter. And then this thing called the book came, and it was revolutionary because it included like a whole story, all the chapters in one book. And that's what we're doing, and people love it. The more traditional companies, that are used to linear and dribbling things out little bit by little bit, they're trying other models. But for us, we want to give people what they want. We want to give people control, so they get to watch, and watch 3 episodes one night if they want, or have that flexibility.
I was looking at your numbers, and not revenue, not profit, because, but more subscriber numbers. And I noticed that in the second quarter, you missed your estimate fairly significantly by around 2.3 million. And at that point in time, you said, this is because of the content slate that we had in the second quarter. We thought it would be strong, and it wasn't. It clearly wasn't something that people liked. And it got me thinking, because here's a company that has revolutionized how people watch stuff. And you've completely disintermediated or disrupted a couple of industries to do that. And yet we are talking about something as old-fashioned as content, right? I mean, you're going back to the fact that at the end of the day, it's just the content that matters. So does technology still matter in this business, or is it now just going to be about content?
Well, think of the advent of the movies. Originally it was black and white with no sound, and then we got sound, and then we got color. So there are big innovations driven by the technology. But then since, we've added color, movies have stayed pretty similar, and we've been, just improving the art form for, 50, 100 years. With television, it also started black and white, just a few channels, not much resolution, and then has gotten better and better. And now what Netflix is doing is 4K and Dolby Vision or HDR, where you get incredible picture depth and quality. We're innovating in terms of a branch narrative like Bandersnatch, where you get to look at different alternatives and have some involvement. We're innovating in terms of the series length. We've got some series that have 12-minute episode, then a 25-minute episode, and it's just a lot of variation. But fundamentally, storytelling has been similar because humans are similar. Storytelling has been, for 10,000 years as we have, language. And it was really refined as a way to share ideas of who we are, and there was no written language, and that's when stories really developed. And in many ways, that storytelling form is, very similar today because humans are very similar.
Which obviously makes your business dependent on two things. One is creativity, right? Or the quality of content and all of that, right?
That's right.
Put that on one side. And on the other side, you just have money, right? I mean, the more money you have, the more good things you can produce. I mean, you can go out and buy really expensive content. So are these the two most important things, or is there anything else?
I think the most important thing is steadily learning. Every show we do, we learn a little bit more about, what people want to watch, and tastes evolve over time. So we're constantly trying to learn by doing more. And money's not a cure-all. You can spend a lot on a series or on a movie and not have it really work. You can spend sometimes a moderate amount and have it be an enormous success. Artistic success, it's very subtle, and we try very hard to be great at it, but we have our ups and downs in it, same as everybody else. And the exciting thing is the next 5 or 10 years are really going to be the golden age of television. You're seeing unbelievable and unrivaled levels of investment. Partially from the global companies, that would be Apple and Amazon and Disney and Viacom, all investing, and they're investing here in India, as well as investing in the UK and in the US, as well as local companies, ETV and many others. So, we're seeing more content made than ever before. It's a great export. And the internet has the possibility to really transform the Indian content market to be export driven. And so far, we've had some amazing successes. Sacred Games traveled around the world. People were really interested and excited around those stories. We have Mighty Little Beam, which is derived from a famous Indian character. And over the last year, over 27 million households around the world outside of India have started watching Mighty Little Beam. And so Indian ideas and characters are now spreading.
Is there any one country where you see a concentration of people who love Mighty Beam?
No, I mean,
No,
it's where people love babies in many countries. That particular, again, we got one eye to being very local and authentic, and one eye to, what will be shared around the world. But that is the advantage of Netflix, is being able to produce in India, share that. And so we're very excited, because that's our strength, is both being able to produce here and share that content.
Okay. Just to let you know that we will be taking questions, so there will be people who will write them legibly, I hope, and I will moderate them and ask the questions that I think need to be asked towards the end. Speaking of content creation, walk us through the process, because as someone who watches a lot of Netflix, it seems to me that, you're clearly sometimes trying to do create content, especially the Netflix-produced content, which caters to interesting audiences, right? Like for instance, in the last 3 months, and I find this insidious, but there'll be people in the audience who probably like it. I've seen a lot of Netflix shows which look like Hallmark Channel shows, right? I mean, they're fairly soppy, right? Yeah. But there's clearly a market for that.
We call it warm and comforting.
Warm and comforting, right?
For example, To All the Boys I've Loved Before is a great romantic comedy. It's comforting. We have number 2 coming out next year.
But take us through the process. I want to see, I want to understand how this works. I mean, how scientific does it get, this content creation process?
I'm not very scientific at all, or we would be reliable and every show would work great. I mean, it's an artistic endeavor, and sometimes it's brilliant. So we often try to start from a really good story. So White Tiger, of course, is a very popular and successful Indian story, and we're making a huge movie about it. I was on set the night before last here in Delhi, midnight in a hospital that we're using as a set, 300 extras, 2 cameras going. And, making content, it's surprisingly industrial process. It's like a lot of hurry up and wait and trying to get the right shot and the right lighting. And, behind every film is an amazing set of people who have just spent, enormous amount of time trying to get this just perfect. So the key is starting with great stories, and then our philosophy is to really let the creators have a lot of freedom. We try not to manage the creators. We try to just support them. And again, some of the time that turns into fantastic content, not always, but that's the artistic process.
But you clearly have a creative agenda of your own, right? I mean, what is your creative agenda at Netflix?
The creative agenda is to please all of you. So we compete, with Disney and Hotstar. We compete with Amazon, and every night you can sit down and say, I'm going to watch Amazon, okay? And they have some great shows, so, or I'm going to go watch Disney. And so what we have to do is try to be better than anybody else at pleasing all of you. And if you have a great experience with Netflix because you loved that film or series on a Tuesday night, you're more likely than to watch us on a Thursday night. So it's our job to earn your viewing as much as we can.
Okay, this is a slightly repetitive question. So what you're in effect saying is, apart from the content, everything else across all the other platforms is pretty much commoditized.
There's a lot of streaming that's going on, so people are getting better and better at streaming. We've had more experience, so in challenging conditions, like maybe on the Wi-Fi in this hotel, we'll still be noticeably better. But in the general case, most people can stream. So then it's really about, do we have amazing content? Are we great at the recommendations? Those things. But it's certainly true that content is the central thing that we do.
When you look at all the investments that are being made, right, and there are various numbers being thrown around, that in the last 5 years, the economists said $650 billion had been invested in the business, and this year and next, $100 billion is going to be invested, and you have really large media companies like Disney, which are now getting into the space. Apple has gotten into the space. How do you see this evolving? What is the reason I'm asking this is you came along, Netflix came along and pretty much disrupted first how people watch movies, the movie rental business, and then pretty much what they consume, what entertainment they consume through streaming.
Sure.
What is the next disruption in this business?
In 2005, YouTube started. In 2007, Netflix started streaming, and Amazon started streaming. And the three of us have been competing in the streaming side for 12, 13 years now on a global basis. Now there's Disney and Apple and many more, but we're very used to all that competition. And we're constantly, all of us, trying to figure out how to please consumers. So that's what's creating the investment. And I think you'll see just the most amazing amount of storytelling over the next couple of years. And it's up to us just to focus and to execute. Disney's also an entertainment company, but we kind of combine the tech and entertainment, in a very unique way. So in terms of big disruptions in the future, you can never tell in advance. That's why they're disruptions. If everyone can see it, it's not really a disruption. So we'll wait and see. And what we're really focused on again is the storytelling.
Tell us a little bit about how your India business is doing, not so much in terms of the numbers, which you're not going to give us anyway, but more in terms of the shows, taking Indian content to global audiences. How do you see the space evolving? And I'm sure at least a couple of questions will be from people who want to sell you their books and tell you their life stories on Netflix.
Our doors are open. Well, the great thing is with all the creative energy, people with great stories, they go to Amazon and get a bid, they go to Hotstar, they go to us, Viacom, many people. So there's many options for creators, and that creates a great market dynamic. In terms of our India operations, we have an office in Mumbai. We've been staffing up and building out the content team, the marketing teams, we have customer support, all the things that you would think. And year by year, we're investing. But again, the big investment is content. That's this year and next year, the 3,000 crores. So, that's the center point of it. So then what our teams do is meet with talent, hear the pitches, think about, what feels like it's something that's very special. We have one, for those of you who saw Lust Stories and love that on Netflix, we have one called Ghost Stories coming out December 31st at midnight. Super scary. It's only for those of you that, can handle terror and fear, but it looks great. So I think that's going to be a big success for us. So that's an example.
Okay. I'm going to move away a little bit from content and what people watch to how you run Netflix.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people in the audience know, but Reed put out a document that went viral on SlideShare, right? I mean, and when a thing goes viral on SlideShare, it's pretty much something because it's not a platform where things usually go viral, which was about. And you hear a lot about the HP way and the Apple way, but you don't hear a lot about the Netflix way. But clearly, looking at that document of how you run Netflix and what your company's objectives are and how you treat performers and average performers and underperformers.
Think of it this way, which is the industrial economy, where you manufacture things, has been an incredible miracle around the world. It's been 300 years now, and the fact that we can create, 1 million doses of penicillin reliably, or we can create 10,000 automobiles reliably, has created vast wealth around the world. And so because that's been so powerful, it influences all of our management paradigms. So in a factory, what you really want is to remove variation. You want consistent process. You want exacting replication. And those are the things that then generate great success. And so that paradigm of tight management, process control, it has become the dominant management paradigm, and it's correct one for manufacturing. But in a lot of work, like creative work, like an ad agency or an inventive firm, the key is the opposite. What you want to do is increase variation, not reduce it. The key is making it safe to make mistakes and make lots of mistakes. And that's how you learn. And so what we've tried to do, and that anyone can Google Netflix culture, is describe a set of things where we run with very few rules, where we run with trying to inspire people instead of managing them. Okay, and so we tell our people, look, your job is to set your people free. And yes, they're going to do some crazy things, okay? But on balance, if instead of managing them, you inspire them and you give them some guidance, we call it context, and we set really good values in the firm, then we're going to be a very innovative firm. And we think that's what's helped us, both compete originally in DVD with Blockbuster, and then evolve to streaming, become global, become an original content studio, many big transformations. is this fundamental cultural model, which, it's not easy to do, and we're constantly learning. There's things that we're still figuring out, but it's very exciting. So it's, again, for those of you who are into organizational behavior or management as opposed to content, if you Google Netflix culture, there's a long explanation of what we're trying to do.
And one of the most interesting things that I saw in that, and I hope some of my people are here in the audience, was how you treat vacation time or days off, right? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the traditional industrial paradigm is you clock in, at 9 o'clock and you clock out at 5 o'clock. Most of you in office work, you no longer have the clock. Okay, people come in at some appropriate time, work hard, but you do clock the number of days or weeks of vacation. And so the funny thing is, someone could come in at 7 a.m. and work till 9 p.m. and you don't really track it. You don't have a punch card system. But in vacation, where someone might take, 3 weeks or 6 weeks, we do track it. Which is a tiny amount of difference. And so we realized it's very inefficient to be tracking all this vacation, and we want people to be free in their thinking and take vacation. And so we don't track it at all. We don't say how much people can take. And so, your first fear is someone's going to take 9 months of vacation. Okay? But in fact, it's just like hours in the day, or it's like clothing. I mean, we don't have a clothing policy, but no one has come to work naked. Why is that?
So far.
So far.
Yeah.
Okay, why is that? It's because there's a societal consensus that it's better to come to work with clothing. Okay, and there's consensus about vacation and appropriateness too. And again, just because someone takes an extra day or two, it doesn't matter. What matters is, do they come up with big ideas that help your firm grow? So again, it's consistent with the overall strategy, which is trying to inspire people to think about how to do things better.
All right, we are going to take a breath and try and see whether...
Great.
Right? All right. Dr. Shalini Khandelwal has a question for you. With Netflix using artificial intelligence and infringing on consumers' privacy, what kind of privacy protection norms are you following as a responsible business?
The great thing about Netflix is we just do one thing, which is series and film and entertainment. So we're not importing data, we're not sharing data. Your data is completely safe. It's not mixed with anybody else. It doesn't have other purposes. We're not in the advertising business where we're trying to exploit different behaviors to sell you things. It's really built around a simple proposition, which is if we please you, you will stay a member. And so just the design of the business allows us to have very high privacy and be very independent of all of the various data issues.
All right, this is an interesting question, and it's something which I've noticed that you and many of your senior managers have been fairly zealous about. Smita Jha has a question for you, which is, do you think you will ever get advertising into Netflix, or will you always be subscription-driven? And your answer will
always be subscription-driven.
No, right?
That's right.
No advertising ever.
In 1,000 years? Who knows?
All right.
But, yeah. No, well, I'm CEO.
Okay, and of course, Yamir Adar has a question which takes off from what you had to say about watching 1 hour of Netflix. I mean, that you said you watched. Keeping in mind the addictive nature of digital devices, do you recommend one limits watching Netflix or any other platform to say 1 hour per day? The answer to that is no?
Well, let's really separate adults and children. So I think in adults, it's up to us to please you, and you'll figure out, how to integrate us into your life. And, it's different if you're watching us while you're exercising, then it's probably really good. And other times, you might stay up too late. But again, that's adults. The big thing we're doing around children is parental control. So we've got extensive ratings, ability to set, levels, and we really want to give parents an ability to control that. Now on modern screens, like Android, you can also set controls for children, and that's coming to Android televisions as people get smart TVs. But definitely parents, in my view, should set limits on screen time. And that's not Netflix, that's, whether it's YouTube or Hotstar or Netflix, some screen time limits are very appropriate depending on the age.
All right. We have another interesting question. We have a lot of interesting questions here.
Right.
And this one says, this one's also from a lady called Smita. A Live Mint article said, half an hour of Netflix leads to emissions of 1.6 kilogram of carbon dioxide equivalent. What do you feel about the pollution you are responsible for?
Well, I think watching television generally, you've got the screen, or watching it on your mobile, you've got the screen. And, the whole world is highly concerned about greenhouse gases and what we're doing about it. And in Netflix in particular, with shows like Our Planet, which really demonstrate, how things are changing, we're making a real contribution. Because the issue is essentially political. How do we get nations of the whole world to cooperate around greenhouse gas emissions? And I think everyone's scared because international cooperation is proving quite difficult for a variety of reasons. So I think really, again, our contribution is to really show what the issues are, like with our show, Our Planet.
Okay. Samir Manglani, what is your subscriber acquisition cost, and is it going up or down?
Yeah, traditionally subscription businesses think of themselves as some group that acquires subscribers and other groups that then retain. We don't think about it that way. We think about it as when we make you as subscribers happy, then you tell your friends about Netflix and we grow. But it really comes out of subscriber happiness. It doesn't come out of the marketing side. So we don't spend that much on the marketing, and we spend a ton trying to develop the shows so that you guys rave about, oh my God, have you seen in The Crown season 3, the treatment of Prince Charles and that whole Camilla scene? And, we want you to be really excited about the content and connecting through it.
Yeah, and most people do end up having more than one streaming service, right? Like for instance, for Disney, the fact that they had Mandalorian made such a big difference because all the Star Wars guys just said we had to, and they signed up.
Well, look, there's people want to watch sports, they want to watch news, and we don't do sports or news. People watch YouTube and they watch Netflix. They also watch HBO. So yeah, it's very open and competitive in what we do.
Why did Netflix not release Irishman more widely?
Oh, Irishman is incredibly wide release. Yeah. It's on Netflix. It's, everyone can access it. It's an incredible 3.5-hour film. I don't think I've ever watched a 3.5-hour film before. And when I watched it, it went by and I thought it was like 90, 100 minutes. It went by, it's just, the pacing is excellent. I think Scorsese did a fantastic job on it. And whether you watch it on a big screen TV or you watch it on your laptop or phone, it's an incredible story and something you can go back to. So you may be referring to theatrical. We're not producing for the theater. We're producing for you, our members. We're in the member pleasure business. That's our focus.
All right. You must have heard a lot of this. Pricing in India. It is, if you speak to most multinationals, they will tell you that India is an extremely value-conscious market. And there is concern that Netflix is expensive. This is a question from Neeraj Chauhan. Netflix is expensive. Many people in tier 2 and 3 cities, which are the smallest cities in India, think that they can't afford it. Do you plan to make it cheaper?
What we're trying to figure out is how to have enough content that people really care about the service. And that takes, our pricing's 199 rupees for the mobile plan, to 500 for television, to 800 for the ultra high definition television. And if we have amazing content around the world, people are willing to pay for that. You're absolutely right about the value consciousness. In the US, cable television costs about $75. Here it's $3 to $5. In the US, people pay $50 for mobile phone access. You know, last week it was $2, this week it's $3. So, you know, pricing is very low here. We understand that, and the market's very large. So that's the key opportunity, and that's why our pricing with our 199 rupees per month for Netflix Mobile is so aggressive.
Okay. I know you're not in China because...
Blocked in China.
Yeah. Blocked in China, but countries around the world have started getting fairly serious about regulating content online. And especially in a market like India, I'm sure there have been requests to censor your shows, which doesn't go through the usual process of censorship. So do you have a lot of that with the government? Do you have to deal with that?
Yeah, I think every country is wrestling with some aspects of the internet, particularly social media, you know, and what those effects are. For curated entertainment, you know, there's many fewer issues. Some people do think, oh, the broadcast standard should be applied to YouTube or Netflix or Amazon, but it doesn't really make sense because, again, in broadcast, it's, you know, pushed into everybody's home, and you know, there's no way to control it. And on the internet, you know, you click and you choose each show. So it's, you know, there's much more openness to content that way because the people in their homes are in control of that. So, you know, what the government's done is ask the industry to put together a self-regulation code, which everyone has been working on. And I think that will be a very pragmatic middle ground that allows...
Will it be a different self-regulation code for every country? For instance, will India have its own self-regulation code?
Yeah, every culture has different sensitive points.
Which means you will follow a different code for India than you do elsewhere?
You know, we have to comply with all of the local laws and local codes, but there's not tremendous variation. You know, we don't have porn, and we don't have, I don't know, things that are, you know, that most societies feel like are really bad. So Sacred Games is on, you know, every country. Or, you know, more controversially, we have a British show called Sex Education. And it's very cute because the mom is a sex therapist, and the 16-year-old boy, who of course knows nothing about sex, like most 16-year-old boys, and yet he could talk a great game because he's been listening to his mom do sex therapy. And so, like, he knows all the body parts, and it's like really odd listening to him talk, and he becomes the hero in his high school because he helps all the other kids figure out their issues with sex. So, you know, it's a very interesting twist on things and very enjoyable. And, you know, that's on Netflix in Saudi Arabia, it's on Netflix here, it's on Netflix all around the world. So we're able to do, you know, with entertainment, really opening up people's perceptions. Another great example is Queer Eye, and that show plays all around the world, you know, and some people may find it controversial, but with entertainment, there's always going to be some controversial, you know, with Delhi crime. Yeah. You know, that some people think, you know, that we shouldn't tell that story, but, you know, we're really committed to artistic freedom, to people telling these voices. And again, there are problems on the internet, but they're not with Netflix. The problems on the internet are much more like social media or user-generated content. So I think governments are busy on that sector.
Okay. I thought Thomas was hoping I would ask you about sex education because he listed that as one of your favorite shows.
I had to learn some things. Yeah.
Okay. We are almost out of time. I have time for one more question, so I'm going to ask you a question that millions of people around the world have been wanting to ask you. Why did you do Iron Fist?
Why did we do Iron Fist? Iron Fist is one of the Marvel shows, and it's been a great success. We did it because there's a great sector of members that love the Marvel superhero shows. And again, we've got Marvel Iron Fist, we've got Irishman. Two Popes is an incredible movie coming out in December, I'll recommend to all of you. It's Pope Francis and Benedict and their conflicts. It's the first time in 700 years that we've had two living popes. It's set there, but it's a relationship film, and it's Jonathan Pryce and Tony Hopkins, and the dialogue between them, the feeling is incredible. I'm sure all of you would enjoy that.
All right. Thank you very much. Reed Hastings.
Thank you all. What a treat.